Hey founders, in today's video, I'm going to talk about how you can pick a customer acquisition channel for your B2B SaaS. I'm going to go over the different factors that go into picking a channel or multiple channels, some of the pros and cons of each individual channel, and then wrap it up with what I would recommend for most startups. So why it's important to pick the right customer acquisition channel. There's a quote by Justin Can, the founder of Twitch, said that, first-time founders focus on product and second-time founders focus on distribution. And that has never been truer than it is in 2024, right? Every single channel is flooded with marketing and sales messages. It's become easier than ever to create content and to do outbound and to do all these other things. Ad platforms are more accessible than ever. The information is out there, and it's even easier than ever to build a SaaS product itself. So you're just going to face more competition and more noise as more and more people pile in. So it's really, really important to pick the right channel when you're starting out, or the right channels when you're starting out. I'm going to also lead with a caveat. So before jumping in, I just want to say this is my own personal experience. It's not the be-all, end-all, and there are no hard and fast rules in business. Think for yourself, right? Consider what your product is like, what your market is like, and what they probably respond well to. The general recommendation for most B2B SaaS companies when they're starting out is if you have a deal value in excess of $5,000, you should probably sell outbound and you should probably do content. At a bare minimum, those are the two main channels that I recommend a client, and I'll go into more why that works and why I think that that's the case. First, I want to define what are the decision criteria that make up, when we're considering different channels, why we would pick one over another, right? So just to define this, there's obviously going to be budget, right? So how much capital, how much runway you have, the time to generate results. So what is the plan that you've committed to with your board, right? With your co-founder, with the rest of the team? What are they expecting in terms of timeline and results? Because if you pick a segment, customer segment in a channel that takes a long time to develop, like partnerships, you could be working on it for a year and a half, 2 years before you finally sign a big partnership deal and bring in some revenue, right? So are you and the team ready for that? So that's something to think about. You also want to think about your daily or weekly time that you have available personally, or someone on your team has, to work on the channel itself. There's no point in going in and doing, a personalized outreach if you don't have time to actually write the messages, or you don't have someone on your team that can write personalized messages, right? We'll just skip right to other things like ads. Also, the type of customers you're going after, right? Industries have a tendency to have certain communication channels they prefer. For example, if you're going after roofers, you're probably not going to get a lot of results by emailing them. They're on their phones all the time, they're out and about, they're running around. Your channel has to fit your market as well. It's something to consider. Then also, finally, your deal value. So the unit economics have to make sense, right? You don't want to spend 12 months and doing a bunch of account-based marketing to go after a customer that can only generate $2,000 a year. But let's start off with content. Content marketing, when I say that, I mean things like social posts, blogs, anything like not just SEO or not just social media. I mean kind of like all of it together, going from top of the funnel and short form and long form, YouTube videos, right? That bring people into your universe and raise their level of awareness about your category or about you, right, if they're further down the funnel. Some of the big pros here are that when you really nail content, it becomes not only a lead generation tool, it also becomes a tool for sales enablement. So if you also have a sales team where you're doing sales, and you can leverage the assets that you're making to help close the deals. So you'll help shorten the sales cycle because they consume all this content. But that's another way that content is synergistic. I hate that word, it's such a consultant word, but it's synergistic with outbound and other channels, right? If you have really good content and you see what works, you can use it with ads, you can share it with partners, right? It's kind of a foundational channel, I would say. You've got to have good content, and I've seen it work really well where, one of my clients has 80 demos a month that come in just from their organic content, right? The other benefit is that it's very low customer acquisition costs at scale. So there's a little bit of a cost up front in time and budget and editing and all that and distribution of the content. Once it's up and running, I've seen it be very, very capital efficient, very, very efficient channel. The cons, right? Obviously, it takes a consistent effort to put in a lot of time and energy, and there is a budget that is still needed for the creation, for the editing, for the publishing. It's tough to consistently make good content over time. So the consistency, the effort, the budget, and also just the time to generate results, right? It's unlikely that you're going to have something go viral. You need to have a longer time horizon when you're thinking about content I would say it's good for almost every single B2B SaaS company should be making some level of content, right? And then you can just scale it if it's once a month, once a quarter, once a week, based on your bandwidth and your budget and all that. All right, so the next channel I want to talk about is outbound sales. This is my bread and butter. This is where I've cut my teeth in the industry, and it's how I built my business before I sold it, was through outbound sales. So I'm a big proponent of it. Sales gets a bad rap these days because there's a lot of bad sales messages out there. But at the end of the day, it is a great channel for reaching specific people. You can always pick up the phone. You can always DM someone on LinkedIn. You can always send them a cold email. You can always send them a direct mail piece. I mean, if you think about the spectrum of how you can reach out to someone, right? If somebody put a gun to your head or said, I'm gonna kill your family if you don't, like that's really dark, but say somebody said, I'm gonna kill your family if you don't get in touch with, one of these three people, how do you think you would do it, right? And that's the level of outreach, maybe just take it down 10%. That's the level of outreach that a lot of founders should be doing to their markets. But they do like 1/10 of that, right? So if you really had to get in touch with someone, you would like look up their phone number, you'd call them, you'd call their friends, you'd call it, like in this case, their coworkers, because it's business to business. You'd be doing, sending them letters, messages on all their social channels. Heck, you might even go and knock on their door and just like, wait outside the office for them. If you're selling anything business to business, you're selling to other people, and they can be reached directly with messages that, if you can help them save money or time, or, make them look better for promotion, then you can probably sell it through cold sales, right? Now, the specifics of, are you going to do like automated cold email, LinkedIn DMs, cold calling, personalized messages? There's a whole spectrum there of different channels and different levels of personalization and how many people do you contact per company. But overall, it's a great channel. The pros are that it is low in cost in terms of like budget, but it's very expensive in terms of time. So it does take a lot of time to invest. That's one of the cons. But you can be very, very precise with your targeting. If you get a campaign that works, then you are the master of your own destiny, right? You'll never go hungry if you have an outbound sales campaign that works. You just know that you can hit the button or pick up the phone and you will get leads and demos and be able to close deals. So outbound sales, I think, is a core skill that I think most founders need to master. And a lot of these skills that you learn when you get good at sales, not only in the lead generation phase, but also in the discovery, qualification, and closing, is that you're going to be able to apply these skills to everything that you're doing, whether it's dealing with employees, whether it's being persuasive with investors. The insights that you learn in discovery calls, you can feed those back into the content machine. Any objection that you have, you can make a bunch of different content about it, and it becomes now part of your content inventory, right? So two other quick cons on sales as a channel is that these days there is a bit more of a barrier to entry in terms of the technical setup. So things like setting up cold emails and inbox rotation, all that, it's a bit more complicated than it used to be. And also the second con is it's a linear channel, meaning whereas content compounds over time and you build your audience and you build your repertoire of content that you can reuse, with outbound, it's a very linear channel. So as you send out messages and cold calls, the input, it doesn't get better unless you're really improving the messages that you're saying, but it's always tied back ultimately to the activity that you're putting in to generate the result. Whereas other channels can actually compound and get very, very efficient, where there's a little bit of upfront work and it compounds over time. Think of like things like ads, content, partnerships, right? Those things, they can definitely compound over time as they get more efficient. Now, in terms of who sales is good for as a channel, like what types of startups it's best for, most B2B software startups that have a deal value at least $5,000 to $10,000 are best suited to use sales, right? If you're selling something for a $30 a month subscription and you don't have any enterprise ascension or upsell available, then you're gonna have a really, really hard time making outbound sales work. And you're probably best focusing on some of the other channels we're gonna talk about. But I would say for most B2B SaaS startups, you can make sales work. All right, so now for PLG. What I've seen from PLG, and I'm not like a PLG expert, so product-led growth, PLG is where you have a self-service onboarding process that just makes it really easy for prospects and customers to try out and then upsell, kind of like a freemium model, right? Where a certain percentage go from traffic to trial and then trial to paid, right? Now, this model I think is super interesting, and I think it's kind of like the holy grail of growth. If you can get this flywheel working where you just have people that are pulled in either by content or ad campaigns and they come in and then they're converting themselves without having to talk to sales, I think it's an excellent channel. I can't knock it from that perspective. The only things I would say are that in terms of cons, it does take a long time to ramp up. To really nail it, there's a really heavy data analytics portion that you have to get down pat, to have your tracking set up at all the different stages in your product. And then there's also, I'm not gonna say 100% of the time, but most people wouldn't just buy a solution based off of a trial and then spend, even 30 grand or 50 grand. I think you're still gonna find that there's a lot of friction there. Let's talk about ads. So when I talk about ads, I'm talking broadly about display and search ads. Display being like images or videos that are pushed on different traffic sources like Meta, TikTok, etc., right? And then search ads are when someone is typing in obviously to Google or Bing or whatever else, they're typing in a search query about something. Now the first obvious thing is that you wanna think about the level of awareness that your market is at. So some products can't use search marketing because they're so new or the category is so recent that the level of awareness of the market, people don't even know that they should be searching for your category of solution. They're not even typing in, they just don't know it exists, right? On the flip side, if that is the case and people aren't searching, if the traffic isn't there, you can do social ads, right? So you can do those display ads where you're reaching people on different platforms and putting something in front of them. Pros here, obviously it can scale very fast. If you get winning campaigns, they can just grow your business like crazy. It's a very, very data heavy channel. So you're gonna get a lot of feedback on what kinds of messages people react to and what kinds of things they like. So you can rapidly test out a bunch of different hooks, a bunch of different angles, a bunch of different calls to action, and really find out what your market is responding to. Because I think ads are a great channel. Now the downsides obviously are that they can be very expensive. So if your campaign isn't working, then you could spend 2 to 3 months worth of budget and spend tens of thousands of dollars and not have anything to show for it. Another con of ads is that I think most people underestimate the amount of effort that is needed to make ad campaigns work. They think that they'll put up, 2 or 3 variants, they'll just print money or they'll find an automatic winner, when in reality, it's kind of a constant optimization. And especially these days with ad fatigue being such a real thing, you have to put out a lot more creative than you think you need to. So, some of the best advertisers I know are doing 100 different new creatives every week. They're trying out, several different audiences per month. In terms of what kind of companies could benefit the most from ads, I think it's gonna be companies that have funding, they have a lot of free cash flow, and they're ready to test for a few months before seeing results. It has to be something that you can commit to for at least a quarter without seeing like tangible revenue or demos booked. There still is some level of lead time that you have to be ready for. All right, let's talk about partnerships now. Partnerships. Okay, so partnerships are a bit of a pipe dream in my opinion. I see a lot of founders that love the idea of, similarly to PLG, it's like, I'm just gonna focus on tech and product. Somebody else is gonna bring all the business and I'm just gonna, get to do all the fun stuff that I like to do. The reality is that there is an immense amount of sales enablement that has to take place with partners. And there's also a long lead time typically until you can secure your partners. And the irony is that to secure your partners, you probably have to do an outbound process or work your network really, really well to get them. So let's cover the pros first for partnerships. The partnerships can be a super profitable channel and they can unlock a wild amount of growth. Okay, so let's lead with that. One partner can radically transform your business. Okay, if you get the right partner on board that's not competitive and doesn't want to build a functionality that just replaces you, but you think long-term could be a really good partner, worth investing in that relationship and trying to make something happen. Now, the cons of partnerships, they tend to take a very long time to develop. You also need to have your own sales process nailed before you can expect someone else to effectively sell your product. Now, this isn't 100% case in every case, right? If you can spend a year building relationships and then getting strategic partners in place that can resell or that can open doors, you do referral fees or things like that, then it's a worthwhile channel. But most founders tend to underestimate the amount of work that you have to do to actually stand up partnerships properly. In a mature SaaS organization, you'll have channel partner managers and a very intense channel. It's a lot less hands-off than most people think. So for the most part, partnerships are going to be good for companies that have some kind of really technical back-end product that doesn't have a lot of visibility or a lot of interest with end users. Maybe it's hard to sell. Maybe it's like an API or some kind of really back-end thing that end users don't really understand the value that it brings, but maybe a partner can see that, oh yeah, like if I use this product, I can increase the results that my customers get by X%, and that's worth me paying this cut to them. Finally, we have marketplaces. So think of things here like the Salesforce marketplace, HubSpot, Shopify apps, things like that. The pros here are obvious. I mean, you have built-in distribution. We'll just get automated customers. I think marketplaces are great, and I definitely don't recommend staying away from them. If you can get on one fairly easily, then do it with your product. You can launch like maybe a lighter version that gets on there. It can drive traffic, and you can then do a kind of a land and expand where maybe customers have bigger accounts. You can get your foot in the door with a trial or with a product through the marketplace and then upsell them onto an enterprise plan. Now, the cons of marketplaces are that you're giving up a giant chunk of your revenue and you have a really significant risk from customer concentration. So in terms of the rev share, you're going to give, I think it's like 30% up to 50% for some marketplaces. So you're giving a lot of revenue. And the customer concentration, I mean, you have all your eggs in one basket. If your app gets shut down or whatever, if the marketplace goes out of business, any policy change on those platforms can greatly impact you. And even those companies could just go ahead and rip off your idea and then make a competing plugin that just is included as part of their solution. So there are a lot of risks. What you give up to get the fast growth is control and centralization or decentralization of your customer base, right? So that's just a risk that if you're willing to do it, then make that trade and it's worth it. I still suggest if you're gonna get on those marketplaces, 100%, you need to be working on other channels that you own, that you're not dependent on any marketplaces for, right? So it can help you bootstrap and get your first revenue, your first customers, your case studies, but then use that and go onto other channels. All right, so in conclusion, I would say that if you are an early stage startup with a $5,000 to $10,000 or more product and you are selling to other businesses, For the most part, if you are a smaller company, you don't have a giant budget, you're going to want to look at outbound and content. Those are the two key channels. I think that most startups, no matter what, should start thinking of PLG from day one because it just builds in the best practices of building a great product, right? Like really rigorously tracking conversion rates and NPS at every level of the experience. I think that that's something that most founders would be well served to do. But in terms of getting your first customers and getting your first revenue, I would be leaning heavily on outbound and whatever channel you need to. So if you have a big market, then I would go after more automated channels like cold email and automated LinkedIn. If you have a smaller total addressable market, then I would focus on more point, personalized, and multi-channel outreach. Now, if you are a funded startup and you have a giant budget, you have a big existing team in place, you have strong case studies and product market fit, then in that case, I think that really you're gonna have to pursue a combination of all the above channels. Starting probably with a combo of search ads, display ads, content, outbound, and in parallel pursuing partnerships for the long term to set you guys up. Partnerships can also pay off as an acquisition partner or an exit potential option, right? PLG as well. I think most startups would benefit from that as well. So that is, those are my recommendations, and let me know what you think in the comments below. I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or you want a free growth strategy session, go ahead and visit my website or leave a comment below and I'll be happy to help you.